Welcome to today's Design Open Mic. We are so excited to have a number of representatives from VAR Architects here today who are going to talk about their involvement with the Haiti's Partners Children's Academy and Architecture for Humanity as well, all throughout last year. Our first speaker in the series of speakers is going to be Lisa Victor, Senior Associate at VAR. And I'm going to let her kick it off,
okay,
and then introduce the subsequent speakers.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, we're really glad to be here. We're glad to be here. Collectively, I think our office we've spent many hours in your Haiti office, but not in this one. So we're really glad to be here to tell you the story of the unique collaboration that our two offices have with each other. I'm just going to introduce quickly the project and tell you how it came about, and then my colleagues are going to come up and talk about what it was like to be in Haiti, the design of the Children's Academy, the construction process that's currently happening, and some lessons learned. Well, let me tell you a little bit about VAR Architects first. We're a multidisciplinary firm in San Francisco, just down the street on Howard Street. We've been around for 66 years. No, since 1966. Sorry. None of us has worked there for the full time. And we do a variety of projects, everything from multifamily housing to arts and entertainment, custom homes, wineries. This is our first project in Haiti. After the earthquake, I remember myself thinking, I wish I'd been a doctor instead of an architect. I want to help. I really felt compelled to help. And then I realized, there is something I can do. I started searching around, doing research on various firms and nonprofit organizations that were working in Haiti. And by far, the one that was most compelling was you, Architecture for Humanity. I really was impressed by the way that you go in with the idea that you're there temporarily, you're training people, you're not just taking over, and that your job is to make yourself obsolete, and also that you work with the community and engage the community so that it's their project. And so I thought, I'll take a year off and see if I can volunteer with Architecture for Humanity, but that didn't seem to be realistic in my life, so I thought, why don't I get my office to volunteer, and we'll do a rotating team of people. These are the folks, many of the folks in our office who volunteered vacation time. The way we were actually able to make this project happen was that everybody in our office, we did a vacation pool, and we had many hundreds of hours donated through this vacation pool, and therefore we were able to send nine people to Haiti. We started out by doing a schedule, thinking that, okay, so first Lisa and Chris will go and they'll do this, and then Douglas will go and he'll do that, and we ordered it the way that we would order any project here. And once we got to Haiti, we quickly realized that it's not like that there. Our client, John Engel of Haiti Partners, was still in the middle of the transaction of purchasing the property. There hadn't been a survey done yet, so we just kind of learned to relax and wing it and go with the flow a little bit. But it was an incredible experience, and here's a photograph of all of the 9 of us who went to Haiti, and the experience, I think, was life-changing for all of us. So next, my colleague Jonathan Radeke is going to talk about the general experience of being in Haiti.
Hi everyone, it's great to be here. Nice to see so many friendly faces and finally see the headquarters of this amazing operation that I was a part of. So I went to Haiti last March, and I was the fourth person from our office to go down. Lisa Victor and Chris Hagelin, one of our principals, came down in January to get the project started. Douglas Oliver, who's not here today, came down in February to start working on our project, and I came down in March to continue developing the design. My first memory is of being in the plane coming from Miami into Port-au-Prince, flying over the island and thinking, oh my gosh, this place is so beautiful, it's going to be gorgeous, I can't wait to touch the ground. And as I got closer and closer and closer, it was like zooming into an image where all of a sudden the pixels get smaller and you see more and more detail. And I started to see, piles of concrete here, piles of trash there, plumes of smoke everywhere, and it looked more and more, scary. As I got closer and I realized, wow, this place really is a place of destruction. So I kind of came into the experience, with kind of a thick skin, thinking, okay, we're gonna try to go save the world, and not knowing what the people were going to be like. But once I actually got there and met a lot of local people, I realized that even though they're living in such a difficult place, they have such an amazing spirit and a vitality and a liveliness that I really haven't seen anywhere else. Everywhere you go, you'll see people selling artwork on the street, or selling food on the street, or trying to make CMU blocks and selling those on the street. Everyone just kind of has this can-do attitude, or at least a drive to survive, because down there it's pretty much you sink or swim. We stayed in the house with Architecture for Humanity, which was just outside of Port-au-Prince in Pétionville. And everyone was there working on several projects at one time, kind of trying to accomplish the same goal of rebuilding Haiti. And so life in the house was actually kind of minimal, because we spent most of our time in the office. And the office is in downtown Pétionville. They call it the Rebuilding Center. And they have the bare necessities that any office would require to function. So everyone just kind of relies on the knowledge that they bring with them from their previous life, or their home life, and collectively they create their vision. One of the difficult things was to learn the materials and methods of construction that they had to utilize in Haiti, and what we can bring in and what we can't bring in. But everyone in the office was very friendly and helpful in getting us situated and helping us, kind of go the right route with designing and construction. Aside from the home life and the office life, we had to get ourselves acquainted with our site. We adopted one of the AfH projects to do kind of on our own in conjunction with Architecture for Humanity, and it was it's situated up on the hill to the southeast of the house and the office. You can see that's Port-au-Prince. This is the office, this is the house, and that's the site. And it's really only a few miles away, but it takes about 45 minutes to get there in a car because the roads are so treacherous. It's on top of a hill, surrounded by other hills on 2 or 3 sides, and then there's a big expansive view of all of Port-au-Prince to the west. It's absolutely gorgeous. Just as everyone else who had been there said, within 5 minutes of arriving with our client, literally tens of kids were swarming around us because they knew who we were and what we were going to do. They had heard about the project, and they kind of like came out of the woodwork and sort of asking us questions in Creole, which I couldn't answer. But everyone was so excited and so friendly, and I quickly realized that yeah, people do live here and they are going to use the school, and it's actually going to be a very useful thing. One of our major components of our design process was working with this community that lived in the area, and our client helped to set up several community meetings that each of us BAR people, as we came down there, hosted a community meeting and talked about the progress of the design, and we encouraged the community members to give input on what they thought should be included in the school, and what has worked for them in the past, what hasn't worked, and just kind of voice their opinions. And that really helped us form our design in a lot of ways, and it gave them a sense of ownership. One of the things that AfH, I think, is doing really well is that they're not just coming into, you guys aren't coming into a new place and taking over and doing something that's completely Western and foreign to locals, but you're incorporating the locals into your designs. And so we were trying to do that as well by giving these locals a chance to feel like they have a part.
I'm just going to kind of quickly go over a little bit about the site planning process and kind of the decisions that we had to make to end up at our final design. So from the photos you can see it's a pretty rural site, pretty steep site as well. Some minor trees throughout the site, and then one large oak tree kind of middle of the site. So we were really just constrained by the topographic features of the site, and then this large oak tree, which we wanted to make sure that we kept both for shade and kind of as a central focal point of the project. So up here you can see some kind of early studies that we did of the site. Kind of tried to find the flattest area of the site and utilize that as kind of a play area for the children and center that around that large oak tree, and then kind of situate the buildings around that courtyard. And then as the slope kind of fell off on all sides, we sort of wanted to terrace the buildings into the site and use that to our advantage. It's a pretty elaborate program that our client, John Engel, was trying to achieve, and a pretty restrictive site. So initially we were looking at doing kind of one-story buildings throughout, just to kind of simplify the design as much as possible. But we quickly realized that 2 stories was the way to go. We could stack some of this program and then really take advantage of the topography of the site, kind of tuck 1 story under and enter from the lower grade, and then the upper story would be entered from above. We're looking to do kind of a kindergarten, preschool, and what we called pre-K, which is 3 to 4-year-old kids, all the way through grade 13, which is kind of how the Haitian education program is structured, sort of like high school plus 1 kind of thing. And then in addition to that, we were hoping to have room for administration offices, computer lab and library, and also a dining area and kitchen to service the children for lunch. And then in addition, trying to use, again, the topography of the site to kind of create this natural amphitheater at the end of the courtyard space. And then also, the client had a vision of having this project kind of double as training for teachers that could come in from other places in Haiti and be kind of trained on the methodology. This school was going to be their kind of model school and also a training facility for other Haitian teachers. So hence the guest houses as part of the program where these visiting teachers could come and stay as they were being trained. You can see here in this section and also in this next slide how that terracing kind of worked. Here's the typical two-story building. You enter the classroom building at grade, and then below are some of these administrative spaces and community meeting rooms. One of the other issues that we had to deal with during the site planning process was how to really manage the water on the site. No running water, no services really at all on site at the time. It's pretty much a greenfield site. And so we really wanted to focus on collecting water and making that available for use for hand washing, for toilet flushing, for whatever, and for drinking as well, for the community and for the school. So we set up a charrette here in San Francisco with one of our consultants that we work with on our other projects, Sherwood Engineers, and did a quick one-day charrette just to look at water management on site and also to kind of engineer the sizing of the cisterns to collect the water. You can see here we've got cisterns kind of below grade at each of the typical classroom buildings, and all the water from the roof is being directed towards those cisterns. So we worked with Sherwood to engineer, look at the annual rainfall and engineer the sizes of those cisterns. Also looked at ways to mitigate erosion on site and direct site water to these cisterns as well. because when it rains in Haiti, it really does rain, and you have to take advantage of that and collect as much water as you can to use throughout the year. Another organization that we partnered with on this project was an organization called GiveLove, and they are, it's an organization headed up by Patricia Arquette, and it focuses around composting toilets, and they have a pretty sophisticated system that has been sort of time tested, and we worked with them to design our composting latrines to incorporate their system. Just a quick diagram of the typical classroom building, classroom up above, community space below, and then this cistern back here kind of tucked into the grade. These are the actual classroom spaces, and we tried to provide as much kind of outdoor open space around those classrooms as we could. Again, the teaching model is really about this kind of open, interactive teaching and focusing on outdoor space and kind of children, self-directed education. And so the design was set up to provide indoor and outdoor space that was easily connected. We have some big sliding doors here that open up and connect you to that covered arcade space around the perimeter. As Jonathan started to mention, one of the challenges here was to really figure out how to use local materials and use what was available to us, and also what the builders in Haiti were familiar with. Western construction methodologies mean nothing really in Haiti. So we worked with some local steel shops to try and design these trusses using member sizes that were available in Haiti that didn't have to be imported from the United States. We briefly looked into partnering with a company in Canada that was going to fabricate these trusses in Canada and bring them over to Haiti, and it turned out to be incredibly cost prohibitive. So we kind of resorted back to looking at materials that were readily available. Typical Haitian construction, just kind of infill, concrete block, a lot of stacked stone walls. Concrete is pretty readily available, and a lot of times they'll do kind of a post and beam concrete construction with infill block, and that's the construction type that we adopted for this project. This is our typical window, operable window. We wanted to make sure that everything was open air but could be battened down during monsoon season. So here's a design that AfH had used previously on Severn School, which consisted of just kind of a metal framework with woven grass in between the metal slats. And when it's in an open position, it provides shade but allows cross ventilation, and then it can be closed down and provides a weatherproof enclosure for the classroom. For the sliding doors here at each classroom, we wanted to incorporate as much of the metalwork in Haiti as we could. As you can see here, there's really some beautiful examples of metalwork. A lot of this is made from recycled 50-gallon drums. So it was important to kind of bring the local artisans into this process and incorporate their artwork into this classroom, give each classroom its own identity, and also really involve the community.
I'm Will Spursum. I was the last person to go down to Haiti, and I overlapped briefly with Thomas, who followed Jeremy, I believe. And when I got there, we had sort of the documents were 75% done, and we were trying to wrap up a lot of loose ends and kind of fill in the gaps. And one of those big loose ends was these lovely construction details, which were really, really interesting to work on, because in the U.S. we take so much for granted in how we draw things and what we detail, and we assume that 6 people down the line, they all know the same conventions and they understand the rules. And here, that's not the case. These details would be much simpler in the U.S., and here we called out everything that went to notes that were both in English and in French. And if we had enough space on the sheet, they would have been in Creole. And then we incorporated other diagrams like these, where we had process drawings to show step by step the order in which all of the structure would come together for the building, so that very clearly you could hand someone an individual sheet and they might be able to better understand the sequential process and then how these parts would fit into that. And as we kind of wrapped up those documents and spent a lot of time really thinking with kind of fresh eyes about how you really want to document in Haiti, if I didn't know how to build, how would I want to read it? What would I want to know from a drawing? And then taking that a step further, if construction methodologies are, they're not really well known and widespread, cost estimation is a big unknown, as I think everybody here knows from all around the world. So we started doing, these bill of quantities with some of the AfH team. So I would do one, and then AfH would do one, and we'd sit and cross-reference and see where our gaps were. And that was actually a really fun process because we both picked up on things we missed or details that might have been missed in the field that were really critical. And so this was just the first little page of the bill of quantities that went out to bid. And even with such a detailed bill of quantities, we got wildly different estimates from contractors. We first went to Haiti in January of 2011, and I left midway through August. And then September 22nd, there was a large groundbreaking ceremony out on the site. And you can see just a ton of people came out with relatively short notice about this meeting. And you can kind of see this is they'd started clearing the site, still had several trees up, and then this is that great view behind. As far as phasing goes, this is that site plan again, and we had 1-story buildings in the back side and 2-story buildings down by the entry. And because of cost and funds, John Engel and Haiti Partners really had to sort of pick and choose what was going to be their best plan of attack. The first cost estimates from January and then the cost estimates from August obviously were wildly different, and we weren't fully prepared for the real cost of these 2-story structures. And so in the end, the client ended up choosing this building to start with, and then using this as sort of the model to then replicate around the site. As funds became available, as enrollment grew, they could sequentially grow the program as needed. Here's a lot of the women from the neighborhood that are all hoping to both work in the facility, also use the water. One of the great things that we found out is that we had an excess of water in our cisterns, so the idea is that in the evening and the mornings, the community can actually come and draw on the source of water. And then getting into some construction photos, we have a couple first photos here. You can see how white and chalky this view is. And being up on the hill, there was about 1.5 feet of topsoil, and then it's kind of a crushed limestone. Sometimes it's harder than others, and all of it was done by hand. The biggest truck you can get to the site is I think they called it roughly a 12-foot flatbed, which is barely enough to get a tractor there, if we could have afforded a tractor, much less larger equipment. So all this was done by hand, and then they self-sorted all of the rock into several large piles for future retaining walls, site walls, infill, pathways, and eventually, hopefully, some nice, beautiful hand-laid stone walls along the road. As we went through this, we realized that it's really difficult to see what's happening at the construction through photos, and this sort of communication and language barriers made it very difficult to understand what was happening. And so we had a couple issues come up, namely when we got to this phase, as we got to these beams. These being the most critical element between the ground floor and the top floor, there was a ton of information about rebar and concrete and other things that the contractor was not fully aware of and was not very communicative with his subs and the people working on the job. And so some of the things that we, even thinking progressively, we just didn't assume they would do, which was, pour these beams first and ignore the slab. And there's a whole series of these decisions and kind of process that we thought we'd covered, and we really just hadn't. So you're on the right, the contractor decided to tell us that this was an acceptable level of concrete quality. And you can see there's a huge joint right here where this is really nice concrete down below. And then the same guys 2 days later did this, with paper shoved in between and a bunch of other things. And we said, you really can't leave this up. And they eventually, with a structural engineer, came back and said, you really can't leave this up. This doesn't stand up to our test or the drawings test. This is one of the features we designed, kind of a little weep wall so that the cistern is back here. And then right underneath here, if water was to get through one wall, it'd have another wall before it got to the classroom. Which is, I think, probably something we'd revise in the future, kind of a lessons learned. And then this is a blown up picture of the rebar, and they're really good with this, and they do 90% of this by hand. But what happens is that when you don't have the right size and the right supplies on hand, there's just no way for concrete to get into these little corners and crevices. So you have kind of a mixture of, they've got all the rubble on the site, but they don't have a way to sort the rubble to be small enough to get into these little cracks and crevices. And so you have that sort of decision-making chain. Kind of makes it difficult when it comes down to construction. And then lastly, we've got a photo here that Carl took of us while we were working on one of the last days, trying to feverishly getting drawings done. And then we had a couple, some kind of challenges and rewards. Sustainability is obviously a necessity when you have a completely greenfield site. Engaging a partner, the community as a partner, really helped our drawing set. They gave us more information about the wind patterns, the weather, which way to slope the roofs, and how to deal with really heavy rains. And they were really great in kind of educating us on those elements. Some of the things we might do differently. We went 3 weeks at a time and then had a week in between. And the last team, Thomas and I, overlapped a week, and that was really helpful because he was able to kind of shortcut the learning curve, and I felt much more up to speed after a day than I think he did after the first 3 or 4 days, because you kind of just said, go there, do this, talk to that person, and I didn't have to ask or find that information. And knowing a little bit about the project as it kind of gone along, he was really quickly able to, hand me the right drawings, and we were, I think, much more efficient with that overlap than we would have had we spent a week apart. We didn't really have a consistent project lead on our team. We said each person will go and they will be the sort of autonomous design process director. And I think what happened was 3 or 4 people down the line, you look at a drawing, you can't quite remember how the decision was made or who made it or why it was important. So I think in hindsight we would have had some person be the kind of information king and kind of hoard all that stuff so that it stayed more fluid. Because you'd get an email back here, and somebody here who was there in February was like, wait, I designed this for a specific reason, you can't change that, and then, you kind of get in that vicious cycle of not knowing what is a sacred piece of information and what isn't. And then lastly, the kind of like remote involvement through construction, like our sequential process, I think we would have liked to have somebody there during construction, or had, kind of a more rigorous construction process laid out. It's just impossible to do really fine-tune construction administration or oversight when it's photos and notes in an email. And then the regular site visits during construction, I think we would have rescheduled our time maybe to send somebody later. If somebody came back with fresh eyes to see things, might have been really helpful.
I'd like to give you guys a big hand. Thank you so much for coming out.